let's just take a look at this home screen. I mean, this home screen is what every home screen on a smart device should be. I've got some basic information here that's useful. Of course, I've got the date and time, but if you look under there, it's got my next appointment sitting right there and the time that it's coming to. A lot of times there's wasted space on these, and not the case with Windows Phone, so they were being smart about that. Okay, so we got the phone unlocked, and as you can see, I've done just a little bit of customization to the home screen here and spent a little bit of time on that. I tried to use this phone as my primary device for a while so that I really knew the ins and outs, the guts of it. And you can see I've installed a couple applications, so let's just go over what I like about Windows Phone 7. For starters, I like being able to pin a contact right to the home screen, and to have that contact actually have some useful information. So as you can see, that's my wife there in the top left, and you can see it's actually updating even on my contact to the right what the latest status is that we've posted on Facebook, which is really cool. So if you're into social media, I mean, this is interesting that Microsoft was the first to really embrace it like this. But here it is, right? And it's really a part of the phone, using the avatar from Facebook as the contact card, and then also throwing in the latest and greatest update. So now you'll see on the call button it says emergency only. That's because I've moved my SIM card out of this phone and back into my regular phone. But I can still demonstrate pretty much everything on this phone, minus making an actual phone call. So let's see what the contacts look like, or what Microsoft calls people. So we'll tap on that, and I'll have to reset the focus on this every once in a while as the screen changes. Alright, so here we go. So now as I move right into people, first thing I see is what's new. So this is actually running right off of my Facebook and Windows Live accounts. And with Windows Live I'm not very active, but with Facebook I am, and so it's just scrolling through here, and I can look at a glance right here without an application what's going on Facebook. This is really cool, really great feature. So, and then like with the Zune interface, you can kind of swipe to the right or left with these interfaces. If I go right, I can see what's been recent as far as posts, and who I've maybe called recently and talked to recently, so that's great. Or I can see all my contacts, and here's all my contacts in a list. And what's cool about this is this represents all of the contacts that I have either between Windows Live or Facebook, or even my Exchange account that I'm synchronizing with. Okay, so here we go back to the home screen. We've got some cards here that are for each of my mail accounts. So here's my work email account. Email, there's not too much. It's what you'd expect. You've got access to all your folders if you want. You've got some quick options to select multiple items and delete them. But what's really great about the Mail app is the ability to flip through and just look at unread messages, flagged messages, urgent messages, or then if I want to look at all my messages. And that seems very small, but that's actually very, very useful. A lot of times I'm going to organize by what's unread, and so by being able to jump right into this list, that's extremely helpful. Messaging is very plain but to the point, so if we take a look at the text messaging here, you can see that it works a lot like the iPhone interface and has the to from type of messages, the conversational messaging, so that's great. Let's talk about the browser. Internet Explorer for Windows Phone 7. A lot of what you'd expect out of a modern cell phone browser. It has pinch and zoom and all those sort of things. What's disappointing about it is the rendering of the text. You should be able to see on this video that the text is a little bit blocky. I mean, especially if you look up here in that corner there. It seems like it's lacking what Microsoft, I believe what it's called across all platforms, clear type or anti-aliasing for text. If I zoom in on it, it redraws it and it fixes it, but out here, boy, it's really difficult to read. It doesn't look good. It looks kind of wonky. I mean, here we go. This is a good example. If I can get it to focus that close. You can just see the text there at the bottom. All right, let's go back up to the top where I gave you the original example. You can just see how blocky it is. That's really disappointing. But, I mean, that aside, that's just a aesthetic thing. So, I mean, that aside, the browser's fast, responsive. There really doesn't seem to be any lag. It seems to render pages fairly quickly. So, not much to complain about. You can pan out, and you've of course got some different cards here of the different sites that you've got open, so that's pretty cool. Just like any modern phone browser that you'd expect. So the browser is good. I have nothing really to complain about other than that one visual deal with the browser. I like it. All right, let's look at maps. Maps are driven by Bing, of course, and the truth is Bing kind of stinks. I mean, it's okay, it's all right, but Google just feels like a more intuitive interface. The only real redeeming thing about this map is that I kind of like the way it fades in as it's loading. I don't know, it's just a little more pleasing to see it fade in rather than to be blocky or have the blocked out sections. So it's kind of nice with that. It does track well. It does seem to have good search functionality. And apparently there's a voice feature that I just realized I haven't tried. But the directions are kind of weak. The updating for the GPS, that could be phone related, is kind of weak. Doesn't look like there's a compass on this phone, so it's difficult to find out which direction I'm heading. So if, for example, I was in downtown Atlanta, and while I was able to get directions with this phone, I wasn't really able to figure out where I was going until I walked for a little while to figure out, where the reticle updated and said I was heading. Okay, one of the strongest features of this phone, especially if you're any kind of a computer user, is Office. This has to be one of the greatest features of this phone that I cannot wait to see appear in other phones. If we want to create Microsoft documents here, it's very simple. It's very intuitive. It actually feels like you could create a document here. It feels very usable. It feels like you could punch something out, obviously with the intention of finishing it on a desktop, or maybe just editing something that you've already started on a desktop. But aside from that, I mean, this is a really great interface for interacting with documents. I'm not aware of anything really better than this, even for the iPhone or anything else. I've just been really impressed with Microsoft's Office Suite for the phone. Okay, here's one of the most disappointing things that I've seen on the phone to date. As you can see, I've got a bunch of apps installed. I've got a Google search app, I've got eBay, and I've got YouTube. So if we open up the Google app, what we get is a Google app. We've got an application here. So this is, although it looks much like the rest of the interface on the phone, this is an application, and I'm in the application right now, and when I do a search, I'll be searching inside the application. Just the same, if I'm out here and I tap on the eBay app, I'm going into an eBay app. So this is what you'd expect. You got an eBay app here, and sure enough, I've got my eBay and searches, and I'm in an application. All right, here's what's disappointing. YouTube. So let's launch the YouTube app. That's right, I'm in the browser. So what does the YouTube app do? It does nothing. The YouTube app sends you to m.youtube.com, and that's it. This is the most disappointing implementation of YouTube I've ever seen in my life. All right, let's look at the marketplace. Microsoft's done some really great things with the marketplace that I think some other of the other phone manufacturers could really, or I should say phone OS developers could really learn from. For starters, we've got this nice background picture here of an artist I probably should know that I don't, and maybe it says it right there, I don't know. Anyway, they're utilizing the space that they have. One of the things that's so frustrating about the iPhone is it seems like they never use the space that they've got available to them. And maybe that's an aesthetic choice that they've made, but Microsoft has made a better choice here. So here, as we move through, in fact, if I go into apps, what we should get is a featured application in the background. Let's see if we get the background image loading. Here we go. So here again, we've got an application here that's being featured. It's got a nice big picture in the background. Maybe it's demonstrating the logo for the game developer or the app itself. But this is great. I mean, this is exactly what we should see. We need to be presented with nice, rich content when we go in there. I know Apple has featured applications, and so does Android, but they really don't present it in a pop kind of way, something that really stands out. And I think Microsoft really paid attention to the space they are given and what they can do with it, and they did something great with it. So while the market is really lacking in types of applications and things like that, I mean, for example, in fact, let's see, I'm going to jump back to applications here. and search the whole market. There we go. So if we do remote desktop, this is an app that I use all the time for work. We have one remote desktop application. The rest are, we got VLC Play, we've got VNC, some kind of a remote keyboard app. But as you can see, I can't even scroll here, so we really only have 5 total apps that even match the description. So I downloaded this remote desktop app, and actually I did it on the trial, and it doesn't work. I cannot get this thing to install. Or rather, I can get it to install, but I can't get it to connect to anything. And this is I can have an iPhone sitting right next to this, and it'll connect right up to the exact same server. Conversely, I can connect up to that server with a PC. But for some reason, I cannot get this remote desktop app to work at all. So if you're the developer and you're watching this, I mean, your app is terrible. The trial version, if that's functionality of trial, that's hardly a trial. And if it's not the functionality of the trial and it's the functionality of the app, your app cannot possibly be worth $15. So there's something to consider there. You guys got to work that out. All right, so the App Store, or the market in this case, is really lacking, and disappointingly so. But as far as content, I should say, but as far as functionality, I think they did a great job. I think it's a really smooth experience. Let's go through some of the settings. All right, we got the usual suspects here. We've got some ringtones. Not a lot of theme options. In fact, some people might be a little disappointed with this, but it kind of goes with Microsoft's minimalistic approach to this. They want to keep it all nice and simple. So you pick your color scheme, and it pretty much sets up the phone with that color scheme. So let's go with a very bright magenta color. And now if we return back to the home screen on the phone, you'll see it's been populated with that magenta color now versus the green that I had before. So not a lot to choose from there as far as the themes go. We've got airplane mode, Wi-Fi. It's a very simple interface. Tap in here, it'll show us the networks that we can connect to. We've got our Bluetooth settings, email and accounts, lock and wallpaper, which unfortunately with the lock and wallpaper you don't get a ton of options here. I don't know what I was expecting, but it just seemed like it was awfully small here. As far as options, very limited. We've got our brightness settings. We can set that to automatic or adjust the level as we need to. In fact, it looks like, let's take a look at what we get if we turn off. We just get 3 options, if you can see that, high, medium, and low. So that's actually a little depressing. I kind of thought we would get a slider there. Go back to automatic. But I will say the automatic does seem to work very well. So it seems to adjust appropriately in different lighting conditions. We've got our region settings, our speech settings, Find My Phone, which is much like Apple, and I'm sure Android has a function about that as well. And then finally our About section here, which just gives us the basics of our phone, what our storage capacity is. This one happens to have 16 gig, which is great. And then an option to reset the phone back to factory settings. I think the operating system is extremely modern. It's slick looking. It's very forward thinking. Microsoft clearly took the best of a lot of operating systems and put it together. That said, it's very much in its infancy, largely because of the lack of application support for it. It's really missing that key functionality. Not having a good, strong market behind this means that I was unable to really use this phone for much longer than a day or two because there's just too much I was depending on in order to make this my daily phone and get much use out of it. I think the phone is great. I think if you don't have an iPhone, you don't have an Android phone, this is your first jump into the mobile or the smartphone arena, the Windows Phone 7 is great. I think you're really going to enjoy this phone. I think you're going to love all the features that it has. Stock right with it. I think the basic apps that are available cover most people's needs. And so overall, I have a very high opinion of this operating system, and I hope Microsoft continues making it better and just going all out improving it.